Hey everyone, welcome to the Still Naz One podcast. Our host for today's episode is Pastor Rachel Ziegler. She's our children's family pastor. Today she's going to be leading us in a conversation around marriage. Now before we jump into the conversation, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and ring that church bell to make sure that you get notified whenever we go live and post new videos. Now without any further ado, let's jump into the conversation.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Rachel, and this is my husband, Ben. And today we are going to be talking to you about how to have a strong marriage through this quarantine. Couples are finding themselves in a different routine, and many of us are spending a lot of time together in our homes. Some are working from home, some are out of work. Some are still working outside the home, but besides their hours at work, they're in their house. Today's topic has to do with the reality that all of the routines and rhythms we were used to now have to be tossed aside. So how does this change of routines and rhythms affect our marriages? Well, today, joining me and Ben are my guests, Burdette and Nedra and Rick and Bonnie Dodd. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So glad that you guys are here. So to begin, we're going to get to know each other a little bit more. So please tell us how many years you're married and how many children you have. Ben and I will start. Do you want to share?
Sure. We are married for 17 years and have 3 kids.
Very
Yes. Goodness.
Lars, what about you?
We are married 23 years and we have 2 sons.
Great. All right. Rick and Bonnie.
And we're Rick and Bonnie Dodd, and we've been married 35 years. I guess we're the old timers. We have 3 kids and 2 grandkids.
Great. Well, I'm really excited that both of you have been married longer than us. So we're excited to learn from you guys today. You guys have a lot of years experience, and that's really great. It's going to be really helpful. But how are you guys doing, you and your marriages, during this quarantine? Rick and Bonnie, do you want to go first?
We've been doing pretty well. We both are enjoying the excuse not to have to run around so much. And actually, thankfully, have been enjoying the time that we've had to spend together, and just started doing some devotionals and prayer time at the 10:02 and the 7 p.m. we've done together. And that's something that we've tried to do for years with crazy schedules, and now we're doing it.
The things we're missing, though, are probably being able to hold the grandkids and stuff. And Bonnie's dad's not doing too well through all this, so we had some struggles communicating with him. So he's like 3 hours away, so that's been kind of rough. But other than that, our marriage is good. Our marriage is strong, and we're doing good, and we like being together. So.
That's good. That's good. That was tested right now, so that's great. What about you? What about you guys, Burdette and Nedra?
Well, I think we're doing really well. We've always, I shouldn't say always, but we seem to always enjoy time together. So having more time together really isn't an issue for us. I'd say we've learned a few things, and I think some of those things are some of the things we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Learn some things that would be helpful for us and have been helpful for us. So that's why we thought those would be good things to share. But we're doing really good.
I do think we cope in different ways. And so that's been probably one of the challenges that we have had. I've been very introspective, and I've been slowed everything down, and I'm struggling some days more personally on a personal level with just all the changes right now. I'm a really social person, so that's hard. Whereas Burdette's he is loving this time to pour into projects, and so he's going from one project to the next. So we're kind of handling it in different ways, which has affected our relationship a little bit, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, can't wait. What about us?
Well, I think we have really used this time to develop a close relationship that with having 3 young children, and then they're finally getting to their teenage years. I don't think you realize that you don't have alone time, like it's missing, that you don't realize because you're just so busy with 3 kids and whatnot. So we actually went on a cruise right before this coronavirus, and I think we realized how much we needed alone time, like how much we were missing that. Like we would get it in bits and pieces, but to really have time that you set aside for your marriage and stuff, and it really, like, we really came back from that cruise like wanting more, wanting to really develop that. And this has really been a great segue for that. So
Yeah.
I think God was working that out for us.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed this time getting closer, just developing that alone time that we were missing.
Yeah, I will say we did get to go on the cruise right before this whole thing happened, and we thank God for that. And He was preparing us for being at home with our kids and alone. And so it has been. There's been something too. We've definitely learned from each other, about each other during this time. But overall, we have, from the beginning, we were like, this is going to be good. We're going to make this good, having this time together. And so we've been really intentional about that. And so that's really helped to have that conversation from the beginning. But I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing good too. So that's why we have you on this podcast, because we want to learn from you. And so we're going to go straight to our first question, and it's for Burnett and Nedra. So can you give us some advice for our marriages for during this time?
Well, I think I already started to share about how we may be coping with things differently than we usually do. And life always has its stressors, right? But for many of us right now, those stressors have changed because of, our circumstances. And so I think for us included, our stressors have changed a little bit. And the one thing I would say about communication that, was on our heart to really emphasize is expressing our needs during this time. Because although we may be together so much more and spending time together, I think we automatically assume that we're communicating more too, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are. And right now we may have very different needs than we normally have. I think so much, my heart goes out to the parents who are trying to work at home and or are working overtime and trying to school their kids. They're trying to do it all, and that is extremely stressful. So communicating our needs and what those needs are, not expecting our spouse to figure it out, because I think we can get caught in that. Although we have been married for 23 years, I still get caught in that more than Burdett does. And we had that scenario a couple of weeks ago. He got really caught up in some projects and was really, focused on that. And by the end of the day, I was ready to connect, have some personal time and some connection time. But I didn't say that clearly. I hinted about it. And when he didn't take my hints, I later became frustrated. And then he realized, that he was supposed to pick up much more than he did. And I was able to back up and say, well, that wasn't fair of me to do that, but I'm wanting some of your attention. I'm wanting to connect, more personally, forget the projects, so we still get caught in scenarios like that sometimes, but it takes those extra steps of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I needed to be aware of her need more. And that's where, again, kind of responding in different ways. I wasn't needing that added connection or that very intentional connection as much as she was. And so I'm doing fine, getting things done around the house. And so that was important. I mean, for anyone who's heard me say some things over the years, this would have been a phrase that we would have heard. Assume less, ask more. That's one of those phrases I've been saying for 20 years now, because that's something there that we tend to fall back and just assuming you know what I mean when I say this, or assuming that you are thinking the same way I am, or assuming that you're going to pick up on my hints or whatever. But to be able to kind of ask and be willing to ask, and then be responsive. I think that's the thing that has been challenging for me, because I'm tunnel vision sometimes, and so to be responsive to that, for her has been important and needed, and it didn't happen right away. We needed to talk about that. We needed to kind of work with that, communicate those needs, and get them out in the open, and then we could respond to them a lot better. So it's not being afraid to ask for what we want, and not demand so much, and not make it a controlling kind of thing, but just be able to be vulnerable and put out those desires and requests, and then on the flip side, be responsive.
And the other piece that I think we wanted to put out there with communication that is really important is, we mentioned the stress and the stressors right now. A lot of times, I know for myself, I'm not always sure what's going on. I process best my stress by talking about it. Burdett's the opposite. He figures it out first, and then he talks about it.
Typical man.
And it took a long time in our relationship for us to figure out that we worked that way, and now we have it. It helps a lot to realize that we're different in that way. But it's okay to ask. It's important to ask questions, additionally, in the way Burdett was saying, honey, you seem really tired, or you seem really stressed. What's happening? What's going on? What are you feeling? And ask those kinds of questions, because that can actually, I don't know if you've heard the term that's starting to go around related to marriages of quarantine quarrels. And, that's certainly happening in our homes with all this additional time and stress. But it can really cut down on some of those quarrels, because a lot of the quarrelsome stuff that happens, whether it's with our kids or with each other, is really because things are going on for us internally. There's internal stress and there's emotion that we're needing to process. So if we can share that and talk about it together more, it's going to cut down on some of the quarreling and some of the arguing that goes on, because we're dealing with what's going on under the surface.
And then being empathetic in response. Kind of right now, she's doing the initiating, I'm doing the responding. So I'm looking at the response there of needing to be empathetic in response to those needs, to kind of go where she is and allow time and effort be put into that. So.
I really like that. I think that's really, really helpful to understand that, we are handling this all differently. But it's also our responsibility to communicate that to our spouse and to tell them, okay, you know what, I'm having a really tough day. I'm missing people. And I've been in the house trying to work with kids around me, and I'm really struggling today. But communicating that, and then for him to empathize with that and just say, yeah, okay, how can I help you? How can I help you today? Because it might be tomorrow that he's having the tough day.
Right.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. The awareness and the communication, that's really great. It's really helpful. So I'm going to turn over to Rick and Bonnie, and I'm going to ask them the same question. Do you have any tips for us, for our marriages, for during this time?
Boy, do we ever. We got 35 years worth.
But we do have a time limit.
Bonnie and I were thinking back about how blessed we've been in our marriage, and how we've had so many awesome people in our lives as mentors over the 35 years. We started out in Bloomsburg Nazarene Church. We had a couple there that mentored us. Then we moved to New Cumberland and had an amazing small group there with many people that have mentored us. And then moving to Stillmeadow was the same thing. With the Married Forever class at the time, that was 17 years ago. And there's just been so many amazing people that have had input into our lives and helped us through our marriage. So now we're getting a little bit older and a little more gray hair underneath the hat, and we're trying to become mentors to others as well. We know that there's a lot of people out there that are struggling. We keep hearing a lot of people saying there's going to be a lot of divorces after this is all over, and I just keep praying and hoping that that's going to be just the opposite. There's going to be a lot more marriages that are stronger and growing closer together. And without God in our marriage, we wouldn't be where we are today. We know that, and we recognize that. And without these amazing people that have fed into our lives, we wouldn't be here neither. So some of the ways, Bonnie's going to share some of the ways that she recommends that we pick our mentors, because sometimes mentors aren't somebody you want to be mentoring into your life. Maybe they're not the right person, so you want to try and get the right fit. So she has a few ideas.
We've always tried to be choosy about who the people are, either whether they're individual mentors or couple as a mentor, because you want to be able to look at them and see them living the example. Like if they didn't tell you anything, would you be able to follow their example and know how to have a good marriage? Can you see it, how they're living it out? And if they're giving you advice, are they giving you godly advice? Are they praying with you? That's a big thing, is to know that they don't have all the answers for you, but they know the one who does, and I'll take you in his presence, So I just think it's really important, because there are lots of friends out there who love to give you advice and think they're helping you, but they're not necessarily what you need to hear. And so especially right now, I think we need to be really choosy about who we're letting into our lives and helping us in the different situations.
And right now you think, well, how in the world can I do that now? Because, all this going on, the building's closed, we can't get together. But we do still have support groups. We have a tremendous support group in Stillmeadow that we've been involved in for 17 years. Now it's called Happily Together Forever. Happily Together Forever. And we meet at 11 o'clock on Sundays, and we're still meeting on Zoom. And they've been a tremendous support to us. We still connect there every Sunday. We pray for each other, pray for our marriages. A couple of times we've done things together. Like I had to go help a guy cut down a tree a couple weeks ago. I've chased cows with guys, whatever, but help out where we can, that's what we're supposed to do. But that group has been a tremendous support to us as well. We've gone through a lot of things raising these kids, wasn't all easy. Son serving in Afghanistan for a year at the top of a Humvee, riding around. That was a tough year. These teenage kids growing up, and some of the choices they made were not the choices we hoped for. And the support group has been just tremendous for us to be able to cry with us, to pray with us, and also share and laughs and have fun. So we recommend that you try and find a support group, even if it's not our group. Find some group through this time too. So.
One thing we've noticed, I think, Rachel, you had mentioned it before, about vulnerability. It's one of those things that we don't like, but if you're going to get the help that you need, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and put it out there that I'm not doing too good here. I need some extra help. I need some prayers. I need some advice. How can you help me? And so I have a quote that I liked as far as the mentoring, and we would love to help people out there with marriages and stuff, but it's an author I've come to like, Holly Girth. Her quote is that if you can't be an example for someone, then at least be a warning. So you can tell people, okay, we know we can't really tell you, the best way for you to do this, but we can tell you that this did not work for us, and just let it out there, that be authentic. Let people know it's not always a walk on the beach. It's not a Hallmark movie. I love Hallmark, but that's not real. So you just have to let people be vulnerable as a mentor as well, and let people see that everybody's got good days and everybody's got bad days. It's not nobody's perfect with this.
Yeah. Yeah, we found that this marriage thing is a lot about teamwork too. It's not just in each individual where we work together. I was an air traffic controller and Bonnie was a registered nurse, and we did a lot of shift work. A lot of times I'd come home and I'd give her a high five and give her a kiss, and out the door she'd go to work, and I was taking over. So, we spent a lot of time doing that. It was not easy at times, but we had goals in mind. We had, we had plans down the road. We were looking forward to retiring early, which we just did last year. And we weren't planning on being this way. We were hoping to be traveling and doing things, but it is what it is. We're glad we're retired, and we're staying here at home, but for the most part, starting to get out maybe a little golfing. But this past week we were fixing breakfast together. It's just an example of teamwork. And I was cooking the sausage, and Bonnie, she was supposed to be cooking the eggs. Well, the omelet. Anyway, I told her 3 times. I said, "I think you're burning the eggs." And about the 3rd time, she got mad at me, and she flipped the eggs over, and they were burnt. And she smacked me with the spatula and just walked away and said, "Fix the eggs yourself." And I was like, wow, this is going to be a blessed day. So after a while, I stood there, I fixed the rest of the eggs and sausage off, and kind of went and powdered a little bit. I went and made the bed because I figured I'll make the bed and I'll make her feel bad because she smacked me. Went in and made the bed. Then she came in and said, "I was going to wash them sheets today. I didn't know you were going to make the bed." Anyway, well, I knew there was a lot going on in her mind because her dad had been sick the day before, and she had a lot on her mind, and he gave her a little bit of grace, and she came around later and told me that she was sorry, and of course we made up, and no big deal. But
and to let people know the difference between like how many years you're married, the growth that happens if you hang in there is because when we were first married, or when we were maybe at your place, Rachel and Ben, if that would have happened, I would have just blown up at him, and I would have never gone back and explained what was going on. But as I've gotten older and I'm learning more about myself and my personality and my feelings and what triggers them, and I ended up going back to Rick and saying, okay, I'm not saying it was okay for me to take it out on you, but let me tell you what's going on. I didn't realize I was worrying so much about my dad, but I obviously am. And so I'm sorry that I took it out on you, but Rick is a big teaser. He loves to tease, and I love him teasing me. But I told him, this is not a good time to be teasing me. So you got to give it a break right now, or you're going to get hit with a spatula.
Push it too far.
But in my defense, I did not leave a mark. So even after 35 years, still got tough days.
Well, I love to see your teamwork. I think that's great. I'm glad you didn't leave a mark. That might be another podcast. but I think that's really good advice. And there was 2 really good things. Working as a team and giving each other grace, I think, is huge. When we're accepting God's grace and we're able to give that to someone else because we've accepted it, I think is huge. And so, that's what we want to do to everyone. And I think for me, the hardest person for me to do that with is this guy because I'm so close to him. But it's really the relationship I really need to be working on the most. And so it's an important reminder. But the other piece of advice that you brought up was, having mentors. And I think that is so important. I'm the discipleship group leader for high school girls. And I'm always talk to them about, do you have a mentor? And make them raise their hand. And if you don't, let's talk about it. It's so important. And what you've said is so right, that person needs to be somebody you can connect with, but it needs to be somebody that is bringing you closer to God with the advice that they're giving, with the words that they're saying. Everything should be bringing you closer to God. If they're not, then it's not the right mentor for you. And I thought that was great that you mentioned that. And so, maybe some people watching have been married for a while, and maybe they can be mentors for someone else. And so they might even think, I don't have any, good tips to give, but, they can at least pray with them. And I thought that was a really good point too that you made. Praying together as a mentor and the mentoree is a great thing to do because prayer works. And so have a prayer partner would be really great during, your marriage, especially someone who hasn't been married quite as long as you. So great advice. I love it. But now it's our turn to share some advice. And so I'll go first since I'm already talking. One of the advice that Ben and I have found is, we've kind of mentioned already, it's really important to find some time alone. And when you have kids, that's a little harder to do. When you have little kids, it's really hard to do, but it's not impossible. And it does take intentionality. As one of our kids is trying to sneak in the room now. It does take being intentional. But for us, some of the tips that we've learned is we get up early in the morning before our kids do. I will admit our kids do sleep in, but we still get up really early in the morning. And we actually did this before the quarantine. We would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning before he had to leave for work. And we have early morning coffee and devotions. We don't do devotions together every day, but we try to do it often. But we do have coffee together every day. And we start our day off kind of connecting before we go off our separate ways, before the kids get up and join us. That's something that we've continued and done more of during this quarantine time. We've taken a lot of walks, and that's easier for us because we can leave our kids at home. But can't do that if you have little ones. But you could take them let them ride their bikes and you guys walk, and just being outside and letting them do that activity that doesn't need you there might be a time that you can still connect. Cooking dinner together. It's actually not something I enjoy doing, but doing it together, I do enjoy doing it. I'm going to try the whole spatula thing.
I don't think that was the point. I don't think that was the point.
No.
I was seeing a warning, Rachel.
Yes.
But cooking dinner together is a time that you can connect. Also, we've done a lot of house projects, and I know we're not the only ones. And so doing house project together can be a way that we can connect. Part of that is dreaming about our house and what we can do with it. That's fun to do together. There are times when house projects, when you do need to take a time out and back away, because that's good for your marriage too. But there are times when it's really fun to make something together and to better your house, especially since you're in it right now. So that's my tip, finding alone time. What's yours?
Well, I was just going to say off what you were saying was when we decided to actually set the time aside in the morning to spend time together. I'm a morning person and she's not. So it was definitely more of a commitment from her, but also I think it was just for the first couple of weeks, it took a little while because our expectations were even different in that of what it was going to be, and so just because you decide to spend time together, and you make that follow through with it, make it a commitment, because it took us a little while to find the rhythm of how that works and whatnot. So don't just give up on things in a week or two. Give us some time. Try to find. Maybe it wasn't quite what you expected, but you're connecting, and you can develop it. But like after, I think you would say, like, the first couple of weeks, like, you were kind of like, I'm getting up with him for this, But we developed it, and now it's something we really look forward to, and we've learned, off each other. The one thing I was going to talk about though was, during this time, especially, we found out that we don't have neither one of us have like a rigid schedule like we used to. So we have to communicate with each other a lot about what our expectations are for the day, dinner, whatever. It might sound not like it's that important, but if you're in this time right now, if you're not communicating, your spouse might have an expectation that is not being portrayed to you, and you might be able to very easily help or do something, but you need to know that. And the first couple weeks, we're spending a lot of time together, but we weren't sharing our expectations, and we had a couple quarrels just over that. And we've learned that, like, in the morning, I'm very schedule oriented, and I like to ask her very early in the morning what her schedule is. And she doesn't like that, but we've learned. So I've learned to back off a little bit and give her a little grace. But we also have to, like, for me, I have to kind of know, like, what we're doing today, because if not, I end up doing a project, like, get totally caught up in it. So we found that, I can't be so rigid, and she has to, give me a little bit of a direction. So just bottom line is communicate a lot with what your plan is, with what you want to do, with where you're going, and your time will be a lot more manageable and very enjoyable, like we're having.
Yeah. And I keep on going back to Britta and Nedra, you guys saying how you have different personalities, and you have to understand that. And that's true for us. And that actually, you used to have a marriage class that we were a part of for the first part of our marriage. And that I learned so much about that from that class, because he's a type A personality and I am not. And so we're very, very opposite. And so we've had to learn to communicate that. And I think that the schedule thing is part of that, is communicating our different expectations. And so talking about that marriage class, I'm going to go back. If you're not part of a small group, you really should be. It's a really great tool for discipleship, which really helps you grow closer to God. And it also really helps you have community within the church and within Christian body. And it's really necessary for your growth too. And so married together forever. What is it? I'm sorry.
We always mess that up too. It's happily together forever.
Happily together forever. I'm sorry. Happily together forever is a great class, and you would be able to go in there, and I know you guys cover many different topics throughout the year, and so that would be a great place for you to start to connect with other married couples. But real quick, this is called Still Naz One Podcast. And so we like for you to walk away with one major point that you could just take and just sink in. I know we gave you so much information, and we're really hoping that you were listening and able to take that and apply it to your marriage so that you can work on this relationship. But Burnett and Nedra, can you wrap this up with one really great advice that you can share?
Well, it's one, but I don't know how really, really great it is. But hopefully it's useful. But what I was going to say is back several years ago when we were hosting the date nights at the church, we called it a night together. And we always usually had there was a variety of different things for the evening. But my final slide for the evening just said a night together with our logo on it. And then underneath that, it said ... because great marriages don't just happen. And there's something there about, the be part of a night together, that's not the only thing that will help to make great marriages, but the underlying thing there is that we do have to be intentional. We have to be intentional because great marriages don't just happen. They happen because we are working on that, because we're recognizing we can see our faults, we're willing to grow, we're willing to adapt and change. And so being intentional, even during this time, was going to be something so useful, because we can walk away from this pandemic experience of being confined to our homes so much more at odds with each other, or we can walk away from it knowing each other better, because we were intentional at utilizing the time to connect, to communicate, to seek mentors if we need that, to spend time together, meaningful time together, so forth. But it all takes intentionality. And so, I'd say, let's make this time a time that we walk away from knowing each other more, understanding each other more, and just closer, more secure in our friendship. So.
Yeah, that's great. It does take work, right? And it's easier to not put the work in, but you're not going to get any good results. And so being intentional really is the key to all of this. Being intentional about communicating, being intentional about understanding your spouse and yourself, being intentional about finding a mentor, and being intentional of working together as a team, being intentional of having alone time, finding it throughout the day, even if it's 10 minutes, and being intentional about understanding each other's expectations. All of that is it takes work, and it takes us being intentional in that. And I appreciate that. I think that is really something that we can just walk away with. I want to thank you guys for being part of our podcast. You guys are great, and you are living examples that others can follow. And I thank you for that. I thank you for following God in the way that you have, and the way that is showing through your lives that others can look at and live by. I really do thank you. Rick and Bonnie, we're going to have their information on the screen. And if you are interested in finding a mentor for your marriage, reach out to them. They can help pair you up with a mentor that could really make a difference in your marriage. And let's be honest, sometimes we need extra help, and that's okay. And so if you would like to have a mentor to pray with you and to talk to you, reach out to them. But then sometimes we might need even more than just a mentor. You might need to go to Christian counseling. And so we're going to put the information for New Beginnings on the screen here. Reach out to New Beginnings. Burdette and Nedra are wonderful counselors there. And they would love for you to reach out to them if that is what your marriage is needing. And so be intentional in whatever your marriage needs. Thank you guys so much for participating with us. We appreciate you guys and love you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the conversation today. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel again and ring that bell for notifications. We'll have a link down in the description with all the contact information from our guests today. All right, everyone. See you next week.